Welcome to a Fifth of Jack Gaming, where we are breaking down or doing the deep dive on Thrunin Away on a budget. This is going to be a breakdown of different strategies and the game plan for this deck. So as we can see, we have Thrun, the Breaker of Silence. It's amazing because its first ability is that it can't be countered. Awesome. Trample. And this third ability right here is the one that goes under the radar that is actually, I would say, the MVP of this creature. So, Thrun, Breaker of Silence can't be a target of non-green spells your opponents control or abilities from non-green sources that your opponents control. Meaning that you only can target stuff or Thrun with green stuff. So like a Beast Within can do it just fine. However, Path to Exile, Lightning Bolt, or stuff like that, no go. And this last one, it's like a little flavor for it. As long as it's your turn, Thrun has Indestructible. So it's a nice, awesome thing that we have with that. Also, being a 5/5 tends to lean it nice to it being a Voltron Commander, which this deck is a Voltron Commander. The idea with a Voltron Commander is when you end up doing enough damage to kill a person with commander damage. They can take up to 21 commander damage to be able to be knocked out of the game. Playing off the Indestructible on your turn means that you can end up fighting or using removal for stuff like that. Our removal that we have is Ancient of the Animist and Ram Through. Ram Through is nice because Thrun has Trample, so whatever damage that goes over top of that creature will be able to run into the opponent as well. And then, obviously, if we're running a Voltron Commander, we want to boost up our commander as much as we can. So cards like Acroform gives a +2/+2, and Reach. So that's a nice little buff that goes up there. Higher cards you're going to be able to see is going to like Belt of Giant Strength, Black Blade Reforged, Blanchwar Armor. So like these two right here, for instance, is going to give a +1/+1 for each basic land. Or in the case of Blanchwar Armor, it's going to give a +1/+1 for each forest that we control. We're a mono green deck and we're running mainly forest. So that's going to be able to be a nice little buff. Continuing off with the bonus of the +1/+1 with the Mountain of Lands is Primal Bellow. And then Raised by Giants and Belt of Giant Strength both give our base of our commander a 10/10. So it gets a +5/+5 pretty much over to it. In the case of Belt of Giant Strength, it costs X amount of less depending on the power. Stratus Scythe is another one that gets a +1/+1 for each forest, but this is not just what we control, it's what the entire table controls. And then finally, but not least, we're going to go Thran Power Suit, where he's going to get a +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to this creature, and it has Ward 2. Ward 2 is a nice little protection thing because it's even more protection against stuff that is green. So like if they're trying to end up using the Beast Within, they'll still have to pay 2 mana for that, which Thrun can be targeted by with that. So another problem that you end up running into is going to be board wipes. Board wipes are going to be a little thing that goes over because it doesn't target your commander. However, we do have answers for that. Our answers for that is kind of like our little protection package that I like to say, which we have with Boar Umbra, Snake Umbra, and Spider Umbra. All those are totem armor. So that means if our commander ends up dying, we sacrifice the enchantment instead, and we end up having our commander still alive. Gaia's Embrace and Trollhide give us Regenerate. Regenerate is a pretty amazing thing that allows us to be able to keep our commander on the battlefield. And they don't lose anything about it. Just in case if we need stuff that we have coming back, we have stuff that could allow us to return cards, such as Regrowth and Shakajuva Visionary. That allows us to get stuff from our graveyard back to our hand to be able to go again. So stuff like that we end up having, such as this Primal Bellow, we can end up using that again. Then we also have Invasion. Invasion is going to be a little bit more difficult for people to block and changes the way the strategies that the people end up going at it. Rogue Passes is a land that allows us to pay 4, tap it, and a target creature can't be blocked. AKA giving it unblockable. Prowler's Helm is pretty much the same thing, except for it only can be blocked by walls. Most likely, you're not going to run into a wall deck unless you know someone that's running Katie's, then this is not going to be so hot for you. Crystal Carapace gives it ward. And then this cliff-heaving kite sail gives it flying. And how we're going to be able to cast this stuff or be able to try casting our commander sooner is with ramp. We have a wild mix of ramp, such as Arbor Elf allows us to untap a forest, and then we can end up tapping that forest again, give us a pseudo ramp. Armorscape Gorger also taps for mana. Blind Woodland allows us to go fetching for land, and Farhaven Elf, along with Wood Elves and Yavimaya Dryad, allows us to find a basic land or a basic forest and be able to put it on the battlefield. This Tonka's Trees Planter also is another way to ramp, and doesn't have to worry about going out at the end step, so mana doesn't phase out. Werebear is a good old classic ramp that you can end up doing to get more mana. And then what we're going to be doing is at your draw step, you can end up filtering a little bit with Abundance. This is going to allow us to either choose to go a land or a non-land card. This allows us, at our draw step, we get to filter until we find whichever type that we need at the time. Yesterday, for instance, I ended up looking for mainly land cards because I wanted to buff up our land count. And then we have some cards that is in a flex roll, which ends up changing a bunch of things that we can end up doing. It doesn't just use for one thing or another thing. Like, for instance, this Acidic Slime allows us to be able to destroy a target artifact, enchantment, or land. So it allows us to destroy a Gaia's Cradle, a pacifism that they put on our commander, or a pesky artifact that we don't end up wanting. Crinkle Blue does a similar thing. This gives us a bunch of different avenues, Concord with the Kami, for draw fuel. And then Primal Might is one of those interesting cards. This allows us to buff up our commander to be able to swing in for an Alpha Strike, but also still fight something else that's in our way. And then we have draw fuel, because we like to draw cards. Any Magic players would say that's one of the best things that you could do in Magic. Harmonize, Keeper of Fables, is a creature that allows us to end up drawing a card. Mask of Memory, Rogue's Glove, Sixth Sense, and Zephyr's Boots. Yes, Zephyr's Boots does also get flying, but then we can end up trying to dig more deeper into it. And the next thing I would like to call Double Troll, because it ends up doubling our power as either Double Strike or just going over and doubling this stuff. Brass Knuckles allows us to do that if we have 2 or more equipments. Choose Your Weapons allows us to take out a flyer, which is a big deal. But the 2-weapon fighting allows us to double our power and toughness until end of turn. Experimental Growth allows us to possibly do more than just double. We can end up going 3-4 times as much as we end up dropping into the X. So, like, for instance, you see the XX right here. Whatever we end up dropping into that ends up doubling it that many times. So if we have 1 for both of these X's, we'll only double it once. If you have 3 in each of the X's, we'll double it 3 different times. So you double it again, and double it again. Fire Striker gives up straight up double strike. And this Inquisitor's Fail. This is a nice, awesome equipment, especially for our deck. This thing is a powerhouse. This is what ends up pushing our deck over the top with it. It allows us, our commander, to do double damage. Double damage is amazing for this deck because we're trying to win through commander damage. However, it does have a side effect that our creature will take double damage if it's dealt to it. If it's during our turn, our creature's indestructible, so we're not worried about it. However, when we try to block with it, we'll be worried. Finally, but not least, I would say the Shenanigan card. The Shenanigan card, well, before we get to the Shenanigan card, let's talk about a couple cards that we haven't hit. We run 32 lands, just basic lands, because that's all you end up wanting. You don't want to have anything special or anything like that. This is on a budget, plus, honestly, we get a better buff with it being just basic lands. And then if Thrun does get too expensive to be able to bring out of the command zone, we have Wilson, the Refined Grizzly. Yes, it's a bear. We do have bear love over on this channel, but that's not the main reason that we have it in here. We have it because it can't be countered, has vigilance, has reach, trample, and then Ward 2. Ward 2 is a pretty solid thing to make it another creature that can end up getting buffed up and not have to be so worried about it. And Vigilance is nice because they don't have to be tapping. So, what you've been waiting for is the big card that ends up rocking this deck. I would say is the MVP of this deck that comes out with this. Or I like to call it the Shenanigans. The Shenanigans is Abdominal Might. You can do it flash, so you can do it whenever to enchant a target creature. It gets +3/+3. That's okay. That's a good solid stat line. But here's the big thing that comes with it. Enchanted creatures may have assigned its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So let's say you're swinging with your commander that's doing, I don't know, 26 damage. You're going to go kill your person that's across there, but they have blockers. That's fantastic. I'm not worried about that because then you get to assign that commander damage right directly to their face. And since it's your commander doing the damage, this still qualifies as commander damage. It's not different where it's just regular damage or anything. That's still commander damage, so they're still going to end up dying to that commander damage. So obviously we took this deck yesterday to our FNM, and we ended up having a ball of a time. And for $15, I don't really see any side effects from this because this is a nice solid deck right out of the box. However, if you do upgrade the deck, I would do a little bit more draw fuel into the deck. You have people that would normally say Soul Ring and stuff like that. See, Soul Ring's $1.46. That's a little bit out of the project budget. But I digress. I would say stick with more draw fuel would be my way with it. So like an Enchantress Presence wouldn't be too bad. Bonder's Enclave wouldn't be too shabby. Oh, and Keen Sense. I like the idea of Keen Sense because it allows us to draw another card whenever we deal damage to the target opponent. So I would go a little bit more heavier into draw. And that's where I could see the deck being a little bit lack of luster with. So if I was going to put, let's say, another $5 into this deck, I would go straight up into the draw section. What do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments down below of what you think about this deck and if you've done anything like this. Also, if you're liking the content that we're putting out, like, subscribe, and hit that little bell icon to be notified whenever we come out with new content. Thank you for watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.